And sorry about that. Hello, Illumineers, and welcome to the Lorcana Lair. My name is Garrick, and today we're very happy to bring you second round coverage of the Lorcana Cross Continental Challenge, where some of the best players in North America are going up against their rivals across the pond, the very best that Europe has to offer. In today's matchup, we have the Sapphire Steel savant, Jonathan Lamb from North America, going up against the chameleon of Lorcana, a man who can change color combinations like that, the very popular Earlmeister, who will be representing Europe. And today with me, I have the very talented, the amazing, the one and only Brent Mukai. Brent, how are you?
My goodness, after an intro like that, I am pumped, man.
Sir.
You asked me 3 minutes ago. I don't know. I don't know how I'm doing, but with that intro, I'm ready to get into these games. How are you feeling today, Garrick?
I am feeling great. I am channeling Paul Bettany's Geoffrey Chaucer from A Knight's Tale. If you've ever seen that, that's the kind of energy I'm coming at you with today. So I'm super excited for the second round coverage. Thank you to Pavel for putting all of this together. We're so excited to talk about these amazing players, these amazing decks, and the amazing game that is Lorcana.
That's exactly right. I mean, these deck lists are pretty, especially on the Earlmeister side, pretty non-standard. Two toolbox sort of mid-range sort of anti-meta decks clashing. I'd compare it to two table tennis players that are both left-handed. It might feel a little bit awkward for both these guys playing against each other, but what are you thinking about?
Yeah, I think this matchup is super interesting. We have Amber Amethyst going up against Sapphire Steel, and like you said, sort of toolbox kind of decks with a bunch of different options available to them. But before we get into the decks, let's take a look at the first round. We have the standings up on the screen for you between North America and Europe. And unfortunately for us from North America, things didn't quite go our way. We got two wins, one from Sailor and one from No I'm Not. And on Europe's side of the board, they were able to put up six huge wins against their North American rivals. How are you feeling after the first round? And do you think that North America can make a comeback? After all, it was just round one.
I'm feeling like I want to see LamChopss serve it up today. Let's go ahead, get some North America points on the board. I'm all for the drama. So if it was 6-2 the other way, I might be saying, let's go Europe. Let's see a great match. Let's have a little bit more tension in the ranks here. But after this round one, I'm looking forward to NA showing up and showing what they can do. I don't think it's too late. If the Globetrotters have taught me anything, America plays better after the second half. So what are you thinking, Garrick?
No, I agree. I mean, we have a ton of great players here in North America, and I believe that they can definitely come back. After one round, only down four, we can definitely claw our way back and get into this cross-continental challenge, because right now doesn't seem like much of a challenge for Europe. They've been beaten up on North America, but I think things can definitely change. So we're going to take a look at the players and the decks, starting here with Earlmeister. Brent, why don't you tell us a little bit about Earlmeister, his background, and then we'll get into his deck.
Of course, Earlmeister. His credits include some of the multiple top set champs, a top 10 on the Enchanted Tour, top 12 in the pack, 2 times top 32, also in the pack, and a top 5 Pixelborn Connect player, who's also been at the very, very top of the dog pile. Earlmeister specializes in just playing a lot of different decks. He came from a background, as far as I know, where cards weren't readily available, so he had to kind of make do with old Yu-Gi-Oh cards that he had gotten secondhand that were fake cards, and just playing with half of a deck. I think that might be a thing that's contributed to him being willing to just try all of these different kinds of decks. He's showing up with Amber Amethyst, which, for the last 5 sets, very not standard. He's trying to bring it back. It's a very interesting looking deck. A lot of one-ofs, a lot of two-ofs, and 61 cards is one of Earlmeister's specialties. I don't know that I've ever seen him with exactly 60 cards. Looking at this deck list, it looks like pure chaos to me. As a Ruby Am player and as somebody who's been coached by No I'm Not, who's all about consistency, who's all about a lot of four-ofs within the deck. It's going to be interesting. I'm looking forward to seeing how he masterminds and plays and pilots this deck. But yeah, Earlmeister is definitely, I love how you called him the chameleon, definitely the Pascal of the 16 players here. Definitely willing to try different things and different ideas. Why don't you tell us a little bit about LamChopss? I think earlier you were saying that you've actually met Jonathan in person.
Yeah, for sure. Jonathan, aka LamChopss, is a local player to me. He lives about 45 minutes from me. I met him at two of these SCGs that you see up here. I actually met him before this. We played at a set championships together, and we played at a case tournament where we both topped in the events, but we never ran across each other. We never played each other. And then I finally was able to meet him after he was able to get the top 8 in Vegas, and I recognized him. I was like, I know that guy. I've seen him before. So we both topped at various tournaments before, and after that we played at the SCG Con tournaments, which are a lot of fun, 1Ks and 2Ks, and I actually played against him in the top 8 of the 2K. I was number 1 after Swiss. He was number 8, so we were going head-to-head in the first round of the 2K, and what happens? He beats me 2-1.
Ugh.
And I was on the play, and he was the funniest thing. He was playing against me, and we were friendly. We had been talking a lot, and we had actually been playtesting a decent bit. And I kind of, in the third game, gave it away that my hand wasn't that great. I played out of Chernobog's followers, and I had Flynn in my hand, and I had Sisu, but I did not have like a great follow-up to that. It was a lot of uninkables, so I kind of gave it away. I was like, oh, yikes. And I play my Chernobogs, and on his turn 1, because I was on the play, he fires the cannons my Chernobogs. I was like, what? So I'll just play Flynn. Now my Flynn's safe. And then it ended up, the game went along, and I needed to get to 7 ink to B-prep on 7, and it was the next card was the ink I needed. So I missed an ink, and I would have been the next card off the Chernobogs. So he told me after the game, don't give that away to your players, even if you're friends with them. They will take that, and some of the best players in the world will take that tiny bit of information and use it against you. So that was a hard lesson learned from Jonathan. But Jonathan's great. I love him. He's an amazing guy if you ever get the chance to meet him in person. So let's take a look at his Sapphire Steel list. It is a ton of fun. We see a bunch of new cards coming in, such as the Calhoun and the Pleakley. We didn't get to see the Pleakley hit the board in his match against Kawa, but I am very interested in it. Of course, we also have the Sail the Azurite Sea. Now, you want to talk about a toolbox. Jonathan builds toolbox decks every day. All of his decks that I've seen in these wheel variants have all these one-ofs and two-ofs that you mentioned, like Earlmeister also has. But Jonathan has one thing that Earlmeister doesn't, and that is a whole new world. So he can get to all these toolbox answers by spinning the wheel, as it were, and using a whole new world to get a whole new hand. So that's something that Jonathan is really, really great at. When he's running out of gas, he knows when to use that whole new world to refill and put the pressure back onto his opponent. So here we have both decks up on the screen. What do you think of this matchup, Brent?
I gotta say, as somebody who has never played either of these color combinations very competitively, off rip, it looks like Jonathan should be the favorite. He has the hard removal along with the whole new world, but I mean, even just 2 of the grab your swords, 2 of the fire the cannons, 4 of these Tinkerbells, whereas one of the big questions that Earlmeister is going to have to answer is, how do you win when you don't have really any ping damage or hard removal on this side? It looks like with the number of with the number of 1, 2 drops, small 3 drops, he's looking to go underneath and kind of get a really great board presence. but I'm not gonna lie. I've been looking at this deck list all day, thinking, how do you win with this? We see the new 6-drop uninkable Hades, which is a great card against the Be Prepared. It will allow you to gain all of that lore off of your characters. Other than that card, though, and the 4-cost genies, of course, which have now become a staple. I'm wondering about cards like why 2 Dales and 1 Moana when they're basically the same card, right? Um, it seems, just from my point of view, that that Sapphire Steel probably has a bit of an edge in this matchup. We'll see how tough it is for Earlmeister. Um, yeah, I mean, your thoughts? You've played with Jonathan a lot. I'm sure you know his play style. It seems like he's always looking 5 steps ahead into the future.
Yeah, for sure.
Um,
I mean, Jonathan's
which
one of those
yeah.
players that popularized the Merlin's Cottage, being able to see the top card of your opponent's deck, and he's one of those players that can use that information better than his opponent can most of the time. I mean, it happened to me. So, I think in this matchup, obviously Earlmeister does want to get ahead on lore and sort of continue to put on that fast lore pressure and then close the game with things like Hades and then locking down Jonathan's ability to quest with things like Tamatoa by using the big shift Elsa option. The only thing with Earlmeister's deck is it can start a little bit slow. None of the 1-drops quest for 2. He's not playing Daisy or anything like that. He's not playing Lilo. He's not playing Maleficent. So he does have these slower 1-drops that aren't going to do a whole heck of a lot against Jonathan's list. So it'll be interesting to see how that early game plays out, because I think Earlmeister does need to get off to a little bit of an early lead, but he also has tools that will help him close out the game, and he does have big threats that could come off of that Mufasa. I think the Moana and the Dale thing is more of trying to keep his uninkables in line. He does have those 2 Peter Pan Shadowfinders to kind of combat any Diablo decks he may go up against, but there are a significant amount of uninkables in here, so sometimes he's just going to have to deal with Dale coming in exerted without any chips in his deck.
Oh, it of all the matches, I think this one may be one of the most exciting, because each new turn, it's not like watching the typical, Ruby Amethyst versus Ruby Sapphire or against the Emerald Steel discard. Every single turn is potentially a surprise, which makes this match all the more interesting to me. Um, let's see here. Yeah, definitely a lot of threats to deal with on both sides. I got to imagine that when you're playing and the deck lists are open like this, that you're trying to memorize the big threats. You're trying to memorize what you're playing around. And both of these players are utilizing that exact open deck list format to sort of confuse their opponents, to put them off of their game plan. So both of them being sort of both of them thinking outside of the box in their deck building is going to lead to some very unorthodox plays. I wish that we were already casting. I know that it's coming up in just a couple minutes, but again, I cannot stress how excited I am. The 3 of Elsa 8-cost uninkable is interesting, thinking that also might be the shift line onto the Elsa 5th Spirit, which sometimes is that 2 extra lore that you're able to just get right there, could be the difference between winning and losing the game. So Earlmeister, as much as I said, where are the threats? I think that LamChopss might have more of the threats. Definitely has constructed this deck well. So it's going to come down to what gets drawn and what gets onto the board.
Yeah, for sure. And I think another interesting thing about this format and this tournament and these decks specifically is the players didn't have a ton of time to submit their decks after Azurite Sea had come out. So a lot of them are playing with these cards for the first time, preparing for this very tournament, and they're using them on a big stage for the first time in this tournament, which I think is great. We get a ton of variety with all these new cards and all these new strategies, and these players are trying to throw these things against the wall to see what really works at the end of the day. And that's why I think these lists are so interesting. So I'm really excited to see how this plays out. I think it is going to be a very interesting chess match between two high-level players in a matchup that we do not see a lot. You know, when you see Amber Amethyst, you're expecting to see hyper aggro, but here we have a more mid-range deck playing the Mufasa with options that can go into the late game.
Yeah. Definitely unorthodox. Everything that we've said about these two players can't be stressed enough. It's you put it best when you said it's going to be a chess match, right? I read through LamChopps' Blue Steel guide, which I will say, if you're interested in playing the Sapphire Steel combo, very, very great read. And something he talks about a lot is surprising your opponent, making plays, doing things, using the fishbone quill to ink things that they might not expect, drawing out, suspicions that maybe they are going to be ready to play a whole new world, but then not doing it and actually inking the whole new world, playing out the Flaversham. I think that it's going to be a lot of mind gaming going on here, and some of the plays may not make sense, and that makes it all the more thrilling to me to watch.
Most definitely. We're going to hop right into the game. The players are ready. We are going to switch on over and get everybody right into this exciting matchup.
Perfect. See you in a bit.
Alrighty. Let's pull it up. Here we have the players. They are lined up and ready to go. Let me switch these again because we've got them on the wrong side. No, wait. We had them on the right side.
We had them.
We had them right the first time. All right.
Okay.
We are getting into this match. We have the European player, Earlmeister, is on the left side of your screen, and the North American player, Jonathan, is going to be on your right side. I'm going to move his badge, actually, so we can see their entire hand. That way we aren't missing anything at all. So the players are doing their hand altering right now. That's just the judge you see there adjusting things on his side. But Jonathan looking to keep a Calhoun, a Smee, and a Flaversham, trying to have some early board presence, thinking about getting rid of an Aerial, a whole new world, a second Flaversham, and that lucky dime.
And on the left side, Earlmeister here has a nice curve with the Diablo, the Madame Mim, Snake, and Fox. It looks like he's deciding whether or not he wants to keep the goat, if he wants to keep the Rapunzel, if he wants to throw them both back. It looks like there's a rabbit in his hand as well as a friends on the other side. And the truth is, who knows what to mulligan in this scenario?
Looks like Earlmeister is thinking about sending 4 back. Jonathan thinking about sending 4 back as well, just waiting for Earl to make the decision, it seems. Jonathan gets a Grab Your Sword, a Popsicle, there's his 1 drop, a Cogsworth, and that Pleakley we were talking about. Very interesting. Earl is going to leave us in suspense as he shuffles his deck before showing us the other 4 cards.
Bit of a showman, Earlmeister. If nobody's ever caught his streams before, you should check them out. He's definitely an entertaining guy.
Yeah, for sure. Just so everyone is aware, you are not lagging. The stream is not lagging. We're just getting a little lag from the Pixelborn side of things from the players and the judge. So hopefully that gets cleared up. We are spectating the judge who is spectating the players. So we'll try to keep you updated on anything that may be going on in the back end as we get into this first match of round number 2, Jonathan Lam versus Earlmeister. I am excited. The players are just shuffling up their decks, and we're going to get started here in just a second.
My favorite part is we still don't know what Earl has for the rest of his hand. He's keeping us in suspense. Jonathan, I got to imagine that this is that this curve is exactly what he wants to see. A nice popsicle into an option of Smee or the Calhoun with the Pleakley on 3. A nice Hiram to pop the popsicle. Let's see. I'm seeing a Lilo on the side of Earlmeister. Another goat. And
he's got the Peter Pan Shadow Finder. Interesting hand. I mean, Earlmeister does have the one of Lilo in his opening hand. Jonathan inks and plays out the popsicle. He's got a second Calhoun as well, so he's got 3 uninkables. He needs to be careful here. Make sure that he can get all the characters that he wants to onto the board. So he inks a Mr. Smee and plays out the popsicle, keeps the 2 uninkable Calhouns in hand, of course.
Mm-hmm. Earlmeister inking the goat, playing out the Diablo, new to this set.
Yep, new Diablo.
1.
And it looks like we're passing over here to Jonathan. Thinking about
draw
his
another
decision.
uninkable? Yeah. Ooh.
Yeah, he's got the whole new world now.
You do love seeing that whole new world to have the option to refresh your hand. But when you already have 3 uninkables in your hand, I can't imagine that that's a welcome sight without the fishbone quill.
Yeah, and just like Jonathan's last match, running into uninkable issues. We saw this in his match against Kawa, running into just too many uninkables too early. Right now, he's got 3 ink options available to him. I think he wants to probably keep the Hiram Flaversham in hand so he can potentially draw some cards here. Cogsworth is a potential singer, but he's not going to reach it for a while, so Jonathan decides to ink it. We're going to see a Calhoun come out, and he's going to send it back over to Earlmeister.
Mm-hmm. And that Calhoun, whenever she banishes a character, gains 2 lore. So putting a little bit of early pressure now. That Lilo is basically just lunch for Calhoun. So I'm wondering if Earl is even going to elect to play the Lilo or go call an audible and maybe Snake here instead.
Yep, we do see the Snake come down, returning the Diablo to hand. He inked the other Diablo, so Calhoun's not going to be able to snack on that Diablo. But here we see Jonathan draw another uninkable card in the aerial. At least he does have 2 ink. If he inks the Pleakley here, he can potentially play the Hiram next turn, and he has a play with Calhoun on this turn, which isn't the worst play in the world, but we'll see what he decides to do. Running into uninkable issues yet again is Jonathan, which is just unfortunate to see.
Yeah, a rough start. A rough start. He wanted to keep that Pleakley. I was interested to see what kind of dynamics the Pleakley puts into the matchup, but not yet has a Pleakley been played. Let's try saying that 3 times fast. So 2 Calhouns coming down, which is not the end of the world, honestly, because against a mid-range deck like Earlmeister's, where a lot of his characters do not have a lot of strength, it honestly represents a large threat.
Yeah, that's for sure. Unfortunate thing for Jonathan, though, there's a Snake on the other side of the board, and those Snakes are going to trade 1 for 1 with those Calhouns, despite Calhoun having that 1 resist. It only has 2 willpower, so the Madam Mim Snake does have enough. Good thing about Calhoun, though, is it does trade up with the Madam Mim Fox, which is an excellent trade. You'll take that all day, every day, especially if the Calhoun can go into the Fox and gain 2 lore as well. Earlmeister thinking about potentially inking the only copy of Lilo that he has, and does put it into the inkwell.
I wonder what the idea is on saving that Diablo. Maybe because he has 3 uninkables in hand, running into uninkable issues of his own, he's thinking that later down the line he might need to draw a little bit more. Okay, we do see the fishbone quill.
Yeah, unfortunately for Jonathan, he wasn't able to use the fishbone quill to put some of those uninkables into the inkwell, but he's able to draw 2 with the Hiram. He gets a Let It Go and a Lucky Dime, so even more uninkables, but he does have some removal options here. Next turn, it's going to be a bit iffy for him. We'll see what he draws off the top, but I'm not sure if he wants to go ahead and just play a whole new world here. But it might not be the worst if Earlmeister has a decent-sized hand, which, of course, he does. If he plays down a rabbit here, he's going to draw an additional card that'll get discarded by a whole new world should Jonathan choose to play it out next turn.
I'm sure Earlmeister is thinking about that, wondering if the rabbit is the better play, or perhaps even just getting down the Diablo into the Madame Mim Fox as a threat.
Yeah, could go Diablo, Fox, Diablo, but chooses to ink the Diablo. Instead does play the rabbit. Draws another Diablo. That's the third one.
And Peter Pan Shadowfinder being evasive, paying off here because LamChopss cannot interact with it. Okay, down comes the fishbone quill.
I think he may have inked the fishbone.
Guess we'll see in a second.
No, he played it out.
Nope.
Just didn't exert the ink for us. So he inks a whole new world.
Inks a whole new world? Wow.
Doesn't need the whole new world. Can get rid of the fishbone and draw 2 with Flaversham. He's got the Sail the Azurite. See if he wants it. So this gives Jonathan a bunch of different options by playing out the fishbone quill and then using that instead of the whole new world. Just gives him a little bit more flexibility. So he'll be able to ink an additional card this turn. And take a look at that popsicle on the right side. Chooses to ink the Let It Go. That's a full art altered popsicle. Gorgeous card.
Looking beautiful. It's escaping me right now who it is that makes that. But shout outs, whoever's making those nice full art cards. I saw that Merlin rabbit. I thought about buying some. Let's see. Inking both the Smee and the Let It Go, prioritizing heavily on the side of inking and ramping here.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. He's got a lot of high-cost cards in his hand that are uninkable. So it was nice to see that Fishbone Quill come off the top. That way he could get another 2 from Hiram and didn't need to play that whole new world. Ramp up with his Sail the Azurite Sea and continue to draw a bunch of cards. So Jonathan not looking to be in the worst position here. Earl not representing a ton of threats on the board currently. Those Calhouns can snack on rabbits and snakes right now.
Yeah, and really the big threat here, in my opinion, is that Hiram Flaversham. We need to we need to get rid of that if we're Earlmeister here, because letting your opponent keep drawing like that, not the best. It looks like Earl agrees. I believe that the Fox is going to be coming down, but even with eliminating that threat, it's 7 ink to 4 ink right now. We're still early on, but Jonathan pulling out exactly what he needs to pull out early on in the match to keep Earl at a low lore count. Now the question is, what do you do from here?
Yeah, really, really tough position for Earl, I think, right now. Because, like you said, Jonathan has so much ink available to him. If he gets a lucky dime down, just able to stick that on the board. He's got 2 aerials in hand. He could potentially... Oh, we lost our game here. We'll be back in just a second, I'm sure. But with that in mind, let me switch the screen here. With that in mind, we could get to a position where the lucky dime comes down, an aerial comes down, quests for 5, activate the lucky dime, second aerial comes down, and now you're in a really tough position if you're Earlmeister with almost no threats on the board right now. Let's get back into the game for everyone. The lucky dime is put down onto the board. Earlmeister in a really tough position.
Looks like Jonathan agrees with you. He's going to elect not to ink the Cogsworth so that he can play it down, I'm assuming, in order to sing the songs like Grab Your Swords, in order to sing the songs like A Whole New World. Earlmeister, if I'm sitting in his position, I'm getting a little bit scared here. I'm wondering exactly what I need to do to come back into this match because while he is up 3-1 on lore, it does not feel good watching the person that is the long-range sort of control deck executing their plan, and every turn is a countdown now with that lucky diamond play.
Yeah, it's tough for Earlmeister because he can't quest with the Madam Mims. He'll give up 4 to the Calhouns, and then he's just got to hope that Jonathan doesn't have the aerial, but we know he's sitting with 2. What is the best thing that he can get done here? It looks like he just wants to draw some cards and look for some more options. I mean, we're both Ruby Amethyst players. Luckily for us, Jonathan's pretty much playing mono Amethyst this game, so we're very familiar with these cards.
Exactly, looks like it. I guess searching for that Hades is going to be an important part of Earl's strategy here. That might be a way that he can kind of come back. For those of you who are unfamiliar, it's a 6 cost uninkable Hades, set 6, so just came out, which says during an opponent's turn, whenever one of your characters is banished, gain 2 lore, which would sort of maybe present a threat to Jonathan, but with 2 Calhouns out, I mean, I'm looking at the deck lists here and wondering what exactly Earlmeister is looking for.
Yep, Jonathan finds a Simba off the top. Not going to be very useful in this matchup. I think the Calhouns are very happy to take out those Madam Mim snakes. We'll trade 4 lore for 2 characters for 2. I'll get my aerial down and hit you for an additional 5. So that should be 9 lore coming on Jonathan's side just in a single turn. So we went from 1 to 10 in a single swing from Jonathan's side. And next turn, he's threatening lethal, is he not? Or he's threatening game if he quests with the aerial.
5 and 5. Ooh. And again, what I was saying, without that hard removal on the side of Earlmeister with the Amber Amethyst combo, I mean, there's almost nothing that can be done here. I think the game is over just this quick.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing right now in Jonathan's hand that's going to be able to do anything to this aerial. I don't think there is anything in the deck that can really do anything to an unexerted aerial. He's not playing Ruby, so there's no way to Tremaine or Be Prepared or Be King Undisputed to get rid of this aerial because she does have ward. She's a 3/4. She's going to be questing for 5. The dime's going to take another 5, and we're going straight to game.
And the thing is, you need to be able to deal with either the aerial or the lucky dime, and Earlmeister has nothing to deal with either right now. He's probably going through the motions and looking through the deck here, but I don't know what can be done.
Yeah, it looks like the aerial quests through the lag, and the lucky dime is exerted, and the players are scooping it up. That is game number 1 going to Jonathan Lamb in very, very quick fashion. We went from 1 lore to 20 lore in 2 turns.
And that's the thing with these Sapphire decks. They can do it with the power of the lucky dime, as well as those aerials, as well as those Tamatoas. It's just a veritable grab bag of how do I finish this game out in 1, 2, or 3 turns. That was less than 20 minutes on game 1 here.
Yeah, just a brutal, brutal set of circumstances. And shout out to Jonathan for playing and piloting his deck properly. We are talking about playing a whole new world and all that. And to be fair, we did not know about the Fishbone Quill on the top of his deck. But playing out the Fishbone Quill, using the Fishbone Quill, and then questing with the Hiram, gaining 2 additional cards, inking with the Sail, drawing a card, inking again for the turn. Jonathan was able to ink 3 times, ramp up to that dime, and with 2 aerials in hand, there's just nothing that Earlmeister could do. Earlmeister questing with those snakes may have been the decision that did him in, but I think it was probably pretty tough either way because Jonathan had the second aerial in his hand, so even if he doesn't quest with the Madam Mims and is able to remove the aerial, there's another one waiting behind, and the same fate would have been waiting for him.
Right. And again, hard to know what you're trying to play around when there are so many cards in your opponent's deck list that it could be almost anything. I'm interested to see what approach Earlmeister takes in this next game here, if there's any changes that can be made. Honestly, I already thought it was a very tough matchup to begin with. LamChopss going first does not help the situation. But let's take a look at this mulligan here, as Earlmeister has two Wendy Darlings, Diablo, a decent curve here, and looks to be inking or throwing back in the mulligan his two uninkables.
Yep, getting rid of those uninkables. He's got a little bit of a faster start here with the Wendy Darlings, which is what he wants to see. But on Jonathan's side, he does have that early game. He's got the Simba, he's got the Calhoun, and maybe, just maybe, we'll see a Pleakley come down onto the board.
Maybe. I'm interested to see. Off rip, it just feels like, why even include Pleakley if Pleakley is mostly going to be ink? But I got, it with these Sapphire Steel decks, it is right place, right time, I feel, with a lot of the cards in the deck.
Yeah, the Pleakley, I really just want to see it hit the board for Pleakley's sake. As a Lilo and Stitch fan, he's got the Stitch playmat. Can we get the Pleakley on the board, please, Jonathan? Please. He's got the
game
Simba,
might be over
right?
Right. Game might be over by turn 3 the way Jonathan's going. We'll see.
For sure.
But I want to see how the dynamic changes when Earlmeister gets to go first here with a deck that is probably designed to be better when it's going first. Looks like he found the Genie, which is going to be a phenomenal card. Set 6, evasive, 3/4, 2 lore. Draw a card when it comes down, so it even replaces itself. A lot of people calling it one of the most broken cards of the new set. It looks like their mulligans have been satisfied here.
Yeah, I think the Genie is huge for Earlmeister. Steel decks, 4 damage, really not a ton that they have available to them to get rid of that. And he's evasive. He quests for 2. That's something that he needs, especially going first, like you said. He needs to get lore onto the board before Jonathan can 2-turn KO him. Here comes the Simba. Simba allows him to draw a card, but he does have to discard a card in return. So he's got a lot of uninkables that he could choose to get rid of. Goes for the Lucky Dime. Of course, he has Tamatoa in his deck, so if he needs the Lucky Dime back at any point, he can retrieve it with that Tamatoa, who, of course, loves very, very shiny things.
Now the interesting decision is, does Earlmeister go with the Wendy Darling or does he go with the Madam Mim Snake? Because he went first, there is not a Calhoun staring him in the face. So I would think that the Wendy Darling play is just a little bit better, and you just hope that Jonathan doesn't have the Calhouns. Unfortunately, we see he has not 1 but 2.
Yeah.
But even then,
unfortunately, like you said, he does have the Calhouns, and Wendy is one of the weakest cards when you're talking about going face-to-face against a Calhoun, because the Calhoun has resist 1. The Wendy Darling is a 1/3, so sure, you gain 2 lore by questing with the Wendy, but you give up 2 lore to the Calhoun when she challenges back, and Calhoun's not going to take any damage from the very fragile 1/3 that is Wendy Darling. We'll see what Jonathan chooses to do here. He has a snake, he has a fox, so he can quest with the Wendy and play either the snake or the fox to bring the Wendy back to his hand. But then he leaves the Diablo out there. The Diablo hasn't been able to quest and will get eaten up by the Calhoun. So it's just a tough position. This Calhoun is looking ready to 2-for-1 Earlmeister here in the early game.
I'm wondering why Earlmeister didn't elect to quest the Diablo. I mean, I understand that it was going to be a free trade with the Simba, but my thought would have been that you're all right with that because you're letting him draw. You're drawing a card off of him anyway, which is kind of the point. Ah, okay. Doing a little snake dance here. Getting the Diablo back down.
Now the option to quest with the Wendy Darling, should he choose to do so. Again,
That's got...
it's going to be a 2-for-1. It's a tough decision, but decides not to. So the early 2-quester that Earlmeister wanted to get onto the board, not even able to do anything against the mighty power that Calhoun wields. Here we go. Turn 3. Is Pleakley going to hit the board?
That is the question. I'm sure Jonathan's wondering now that he's drawn the fishbone quill, which is going to be more important.
Yeah, for sure.
And I'm sure there's no part, there is 0% chance that there's any part of Jonathan's thinking that he goes, well, I'm playing the Stitch Mat, so I got to put down the Pleakley.
I think maybe a tiny voice in his head, that is me, is whispering in his ear, play the Pleakley, play the Pleakley.
He's fighting right now. He's fighting for it.
He's got the Kronk on his right and the other on his left.
Devil Kronk and Angel Kronk. Meanwhile, taking a look at Earlmeister's hand, it looks like he's in a lot of trouble. Again, this deck is quite a surprise. It's got a lot of tools, but with 2 genies and an Elsa staring you in the face. Meanwhile, Jonathan with 6 cards in hand, a whole ton of options. This looks like it's going to be difficult. No!
The Pleakley closes.
Pleakley in the inkwell.
So call it the Plinkwell by this point. It's just, we cannot get Pleakley out of the board. He wanted to do it, but the good Kronk won in the end, and the fishbone comes down onto the board, and we see a pass. I think the Pleakley could have maybe been an okay play there over the fishbone quill, just because we did see a fox go into the ink, so the Pleakley would be kind of safe to sort of quest throughout the game. Not really worried about the fox, and we get to put the Simba into the inkwell, but fishbone quill, it makes a lot of sense. We do see Earlmeister inking and getting the genie out. I think the genie is super important for Earlmeister here, and he gets a Rapunzel off the top. Let's see if he's able to make any use of that Rapunzel.
It's just so hard to get the full value off of the Rapunzel, especially when you're playing against a great player like Jonathan, who's probably going to be trying to play around it. Ooh, he's questing the Wendy Darling here, which kind of just gives Jonathan a free 2 lore and removal of that Wendy. I'm wondering what the thought process is here, but I guess if you quest out everything you need to kind of attempt to go under here, go into aggro mode. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, he did have the opportunity to quest last turn and get the Calhoun a free trade, but this time he gets to quest with the Snake and the Wendy. So if Calhoun, who is going to have resist 2 now instead of resist 1 thanks to the Cogsworth. So the thinking from Earlmeister is if I quest with them both, he takes out my Wendy with the Calhoun, he gains 2 lore, but then I can take out the Calhoun with my Snake and he only gains 2. Whereas if I quested with Wendy and then I quest with the Snake, he gets to take them both out with Calhoun and gain 4 lore. So saving 2 lore there for Earlmeister, going with this sequencing.
Yeah. And even with the evasive genie on board, representing 2 lore each turn and a genie in hand and an Elsa, it just feels like the writing's on the wall here. With the whole new world in hand, the Cogsworth down to sing it.
Especially if he chooses to sing Friends on the Other Side here. It's something Earlmeister needs to keep in mind, that there is a whole new world possibilities out there. If he sings the Friends on the Other Side or plays the Friends on the Other Side, it's going to be a tough time losing all of those cards. So we see a genie come down. He's going to draw before he decides to do anything. We might see the Friends being sung. He's thinking about it. He knows that it's an option over there on Jonathan's side. He could ink it as well, but we'll see what he decides to do. Looks like it might be going into the inkwell. It does go into the inkwell.
Good play by Earlmeister. What some might call a megatonic big brain move. I mean, just looking at this, Garrick, How does Earl come back from this? How does Earl come back from this? Unless the whole new world completely bricks for Jonathan, but he's built a deck where he has so many different options and answers. I don't see it completely bricking. What is the answer here? I guess the only answer is to go aggro, huh?
Yeah, just keep questing with these genies. Like I mentioned earlier, it's tough. It's very tough to remove those 4 strength characters. So we see him use the grab your sword here, hard cast. I think this is a great play by Jonathan because now he can sing with Cogsworth, and if he gets the second grab your sword, he'll be able to remove all 3 of these characters on his next turn. And like I was saying earlier, dealing 4 to these genies is pretty tough. So if he can deal 2 across the board now, wheel with his whole new world and get another grab your sword for the next turn, he'll have an answer to the genies. So if he doesn't get that answer, I think Jonathan's in kind of a tough position because removing these genies is not easy for his deck to do. Now, he does have options like fire the cannons and things like that to him as well. I think we ran into an issue here where the fishbone quill was accidentally used as ink. Jonathan realized that. So we do see the whole new world come down. And again, he does have fire the cannons in his deck, and he does have another grab your sword. But he needs to answer these genies. Otherwise, they're going to run away with the game for Earlmeister.
Oh,
Triple Tink.
3 Tinkerbells.
Triple Tink can do it, but we need a little bit more ink on Jonathan's side of the board. He can use the fishbone quill to ink something here.
Yeah, but with Earlmeister being unable to find a Rapunzel to heal the genies, all it's going to take is 2 more turns. 2 big tinks coming down to completely wipe out those genies. But I guess at 7 lore to 2, if you're Earlmeister, you might just be thinking, okay, I've got a good shot at this as long as I keep going aggro.
We're going to put a Hiram into the inkwell, it looks like. Going to ink something else with a fishbone quill. One of the Tinkerbells potentially could be Mr. Smee. But if he gets to 10, which he can next turn by inking naturally and then using fishbone, he can play the Tinkerbell for 6 and shift the Tinkerbell for 4 and deal 2 damage to everything on Earl's side of the board.
Oh, the big brain play, Garrick.
Yep. That could be a grab your sword for 10 with a body. So we'll see.
I did not even see that line, you genius!
The only reason I saw it is because the Sapphire Steel player that is RMB, the beautiful bald, did that exact play in his matchup against Tim in round 1.
Oh, see, I missed that match. Otherwise, it would have been top of mind. Let's see what Earlmeister draws here. A goat, not a bad card when you're trying to go aggro.
Yep, not the worst in the world. I think he's checking to see how many characters he has in the discard, potentially thinking about a Chernobog here.
Potentially, but I feel like the Chernobog might be a little slow when you have all of these cards, when you're able to put your board out completely wide and you don't have to be worried about a B prep. I believe in Jonathan's list, there's only 2 grab your swords too, so he's probably thinking that he can put down a lot of characters or go, it's either wide or narrow, right?
Yeah.
Chernobog being real narrow or throwing down a whole bunch of guys.
If he does have the characters in his discard, it might not be a bad play, honestly. It's a 9/9, the quest for 3, something Jonathan cannot easily remove. Jonathan can't even easily remove these genies with no Zeus or anything. Decides for the Peter Pan Shadow Finder. He wants to get rid of the Cogsworth. Okay, I was going to say there's no way he challenged Simba. Does go into the Cogsworth with the Madam M Snake and the Peter Pan Shadow Finder. Getting rid of that resist and, importantly, a Singer.
5, 6, 7 cards, 7 characters in the discard. It looks like he's going with your thought process, putting down the Chernobog here.
The Chernobog could be all she wrote here. Because
We're gonna get
again,
to 11 ink, or 11 lore rather.
it's going to be really tough to remove that Chernobog. Now, we are going to have the Tinkerbells. The Tinkerbells can challenge pretty well with the Calhoun. So if we do the Tinkerbell, shift Tinkerbell option, then we remove 3 characters from the board. We deal 2 to the Chernobog, and then Calhoun and Tinkerbell can take the Chernobog out themselves.
Yeah. Tons of options. I don't know about you, but whenever anybody plays a whole new world, I always feel like I take an extra minute and a half to think through decisions because there's so many options after. But you have done a great job of electing to take out the Simba instead.
Interesting. Well, he drew the shift Simba off the top, so maybe it was a good choice, but I'm not sure Jonathan was going to shift that Simba in this match regardless. It'd be interesting to see why Earl wanted to get rid of the Simba. We do see the Tink come down. He can ink twice here and shift Tink if he so chooses, which will remove the second genie. We see Simba go into the inkwell, Fishbone Quill, the Ariel, and the double shift.
And
Tink.
he does it! Oh! Garrick with the big brain, Jonathan with the big brain plays. And now, I mean, going to 12 feels not that different from going to 14. But in this particular matchup, it might make a lot of difference. That challenge into that Simba might be something that Earlmeister regrets. But let's see what he comes back with here.
A snake, good for the goat. He wants to get over the finish line here.
Yeah, we're at 6 ink.
He's got 6 ink, so we could go bounce. We could get the Mufasa down as well. There's a couple options available to him. Not a ton of great ones here. But Jonathan wants to get rid of this Chernobog, which he likely will on the next turn. So I think Earl needs to establish another threat onto the board. He's going to go with Lilo and Mufasa. This is sort of an insurance for him. He can bring back the Lilo at any point, and he will force Jonathan to have the answer every time. However, Jonathan has things like Calhoun in his deck, and if he's able to establish a Calhoun on the board, the Calhoun can just destroy the Lilo or banish the Lilo every single turn and gain 2 lore doing it. So it's not a huge threat, but it is something that Jonathan has to think about.
Yeah, and Earl electing to not quest the Chernobog, even though it would essentially cost all of the characters of Jonathan to take it out. I wonder why. I wonder what the thought process is behind the no questing Chernobog.
Well, if he doesn't quest with the Chernobog, Jonathan doesn't have a ton of things in his deck that can remove these characters if they're not exerted, at least on the board currently. So right now, he can just hold on to the Chernobog and sort of establish a board that's tall enough and wide enough where he can just swing for game in one turn. Because he's not playing against a Ruby deck, he has no fear of Be Prepared or anything like that. So he can sort of just sit here and wait for his board to get wide enough and tall enough where it gets to the point that he can just quest and end the game. And there's that Hades you were talking about. That's another card that's going to help him get over the finish line. So Jonathan needs to start ending the game here, but he doesn't really have the cards in his hand to do so. He needs aerials, he needs lucky dimes, he needs cards like that. He's got the ink to do it, just needs to find those cards.
He's got so much ink. The ink is spilling onto the characters. There's so much of it here. Let's see.
He gets a fishbone, and I didn't see what the other card was. Maybe the popsicle on the left is what he drew with
it looks like the
room.
popsicle is also it. Pleakley play still live.
Pleakley is an option. I don't think you want to ink any of the characters on your side of the board with Pleakley, but it's definitely an option. I think Jonathan is in a position where he needs to find a way to win and not necessarily stick with the cards that are in his hand currently. So another Wheel Soon might not be the worst option in the world. Getting down another Tinkerbell, questing this turn with his characters, and then hopefully finding something to get rid of these characters on the board. A Let It Go would be amazing. That's essentially, Ruby removal for Sapphire Steel. That's something he'd love to find.
Mm-hmm. He'd love to find it, but he doesn't. So now, I mean, the tables might have turned. We're at 5-7 lore on board for Earlmeister. That second Tink came down. I don't... Am I imagining it, or did that second Tink come down without Earl putting damage on the characters?
Yep.
I might be incorrect.
Did not happen. Maybe they're catching it now. Yep. Judge just
it looks
said
like
stop there in the chat.
Not that it's going to take out any of Earlmeister's characters, but yeah. There we go. Yep. Seeing the judge. Shout out our awesome judge who has been doing a bang-up job today, by the way.
Yeah, that is Snobby. He was the head judge, I believe, for the majority of the DLCs for North America. He recently announced that he is retiring from that position, so he will no longer be doing that. But he's got one last go-around here in the Lorcana Cross Continental Challenge and maybe some more appearances in future online events, but he's not going to be doing that head judge job anymore. If you'd like to follow him, he's got an amazing Twitter account that is linked down below. Shout out to Snobby.
Yeah, and Snobby, if you didn't hear it on the Club Lorcana podcast, Zan Syed was actually talking about you, saying that he thought you were a great and phenomenal judge and you will be missed. So although I have not had an opportunity to meet with you, well respected in the community. We appreciate you being here. Earlmeister has so many cards in hand and so much to think about. Now, from my perspective as a simpleton, I say get down the Hades and just pray. But Earlmeister has to know that he's got to be looking out for a Let It Go, which I believe is a one of, if I'm not mistaken, two of in LamChopps' deck here.
Opts for the Elsa. Looks like he might want to remove a Tinkerbell with Elsa and Mufasa. Roll the dice. Spin the wheel, as it were, and see what we get off the top. Last time it was an Olaf. He gets a rabbit.
Okay.
So he's going to draw a card. Might not be relevant. I mean, there is a whole new world in Jonathan's hand. But we'll see if the Elsa decides to remove the Tinkerbell with the additional 2.
And that crab changes things because now he'll be able to neatly take out the full Tinkerbell with the Elsa if he'd like to, if he throws down the crab.
I'm really interested in why Earlmeister decided to challenge into the Tinkerbell instead of questing. I guess the potential is there for a Lucky Dime aerial combo. We are at 12. It would require a bit more ink than that, but if he has it in his hand, he could do it with the Fishbone Quills. And then we're at 8, so that would be 10, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, plus the aerial would be game if he has that exact combo in his hand.
Right. It's a lot easier to comment and ask the questions while we get to see both players' hands. Earlmeister, in the meantime, trying to figure out exactly what combos of 4 cards Jonathan might be holding on to here and playing around what he doesn't know. So if he knew there was a Pleakley, a Whole New World, Pete, and Popsicle in the hand of Jonathan, I'm sure that there would have been a much different play here.
Yeah, I think he may have gone the aggressive route and just quested and put down the Hades, like you said, and forced Jonathan to start trading pretty unfairly. Okay, you got a Calhoun over there. I got a Hades. Go ahead and challenge my characters.
I'm ahead in lore. You want to get 2 lore? I'll get 2 lore for every character your Calhoun banishes. You know, It's a tricky spot to be in.
Yeah, and right now Earlmeister has a lot to think about. He is at 9. Jonathan is starting to become very aggressive with his Tinkerbell. His Smee has quested twice. He's got the Calhoun and the Hiram, obviously, probably going to quest next turn. So he's thinking about removing some of this aggression on Jonathan's side of the board. So he decides to remove the Tinkerbell.
The Tinkerbell. Mm-hmm.
Lilo is going to remove Smee.
Mm-hmm. And then Chernabog into that other. Oh.
All right, so the crab came down. It gave Elsa an additional 3, which took out the Tinkerbell that was at full willpower. And then he used the Lilo to take out the Smee, which had 2 damage, and the Chernabog to finish the last remaining Tinkerbell there. So now, with 12 ink, 13 it looks like on Jonathan's side, he has a ton of ink to work with. Next turn, Earl is going to be potentially going up a significant amount. He'll be going up to 15, I believe, if he quests with everything. And then we're just a little bit away. We can start the goat bounce goat shenanigans. He does find the lucky dime by playing down the popsicle, but he doesn't have the aerial. He doesn't have a singer for the whole new world. And it's going to take a lot of resources to start getting this lore engine online.
Mm-hmm. It this is turning into quite the match, dealing with all of this middle game territory here. Having a Chernabog on board, knowing that your opponent can go to 15 next turn, not having the cards that you want in Jonathan's position. We'll see exactly what he chooses to do, but in seeing that he's only used 1 ink for that popsicle and he has that full hand to kind of play around with here.
Yep, that is correct. It looks like the players are adjusting the way they're going to do their ink here. So Jonathan is putting all of his ink in 1 stack. He's going to use dice to denote how much ink he has in that big stack so the players can figure out what's going on, and they're not taking up too much space on the board. So very smart decision there. Decides to use the lucky dime, put that onto the board. It is his win condition. If he draws into something like the Tamatoa or the aerial shortly, he can turn this game on its head. The Cogsworth comes down as well, giving his characters resist, making it tougher for Earlmeister to challenge into them.
Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, Earlmeister is going, or Jonathan is going to be able to challenge into that Chernabog this turn and eliminate it from the field if he chooses to with the Calhoun. I can't imagine a world where he doesn't want to gain 2 lore, make a small trade, a 2 cost for a 10 cost, and gain 2 lore.
Yeah, seems pretty good.
Yeah. Seems okay.
That is what he decides to do. Jonathan at 12 here. He did activate the lucky dime, targeting his Cogsworth, and it looks like he's going to quest with a Hiram as well. Go to 13, so he's probably going to get rid of a popsicle here, draw an additional 2 cards, and see what he has available to him. Very interesting position here for Jonathan. He was in a tough spot, and if Earl wasn't playing around those potential outs and just questing as fast as he could, the game likely is going to end in his favor. But because he was forced to play around potential things that Jonathan could have, he was slowed down significantly. So now we're in a position where the lucky dime's on board. Jonathan is at 13. He has a singer for a whole new world on his next turn. If he finds Tamatoa, or if he finds Ariel, the game might just be wraps.
Yeah. How quickly the tides turn in Lorcana. And now if I'm Earlmeister, I'm wondering what I need to do. Now I'm behind on lore, I'm behind on ink. Oh.
The Elsa comes into hand. Fortunately, the Elsa cannot lock down Cogsworth. Cogsworth's got ward. So Cogsworth, great singing voice for a whole new world.
Ooh, what do you... I'm looking, and I'm asking, what do I do here? Sure, I can draw with the rabbit, but what am I even looking for? I'm looking for be prepared, but that doesn't exist in the deck.
Yeah.
Oh
Earlmeister's
boy.
just really in a tough position. Jonathan did a great job of forcing Earl to be reactive when he should be the proactive player, right? Playing on the play, has the more aggressive deck, trying to go under the 1 turn, 2 turn KO deck that is Sapphire Steel Wheel. So Jonathan's done a great job slowing down Earl and forcing him to consider what was on the board. We saw the Wendy Darling come down really early, for instance, and then the Calhoun stops it in its tracks. We've seen this happen time and time again throughout the match, and using the double shift Tink to get rid of those genies was absolutely huge. I think that was the game-changing play for sure. Using that grab your sword, setting up the damage, and setting himself up for a potential double shift Tink, or fire the cannons, or another grab your sword.
He bounces back the crab, uses the Madam Mim Fox with Rush to take out the Hiram Flaversham, which is a big issue, but it might just be too little too late here.
All right, down comes the Hades, though. We quest for 3. We're at 12. We are representing going to 18, and if he has Goat Bounce, that would represent game next turn if Jonathan is not able to solve the game this turn and just win. So we'll see what happens. But
He's
Earlmeister
got
now
17
being
ink,
aggressive.
though,
Yep.
and about to have a full grip of 7 cards. Does not elect to play the Fire the Cannons on the Hades. Interesting.
Yeah, Fire the Cannons would have done 2 to the Hades. Hades would have still survived. He could potentially find another Fire the Cannons, but it looks like he just wanted more ink for, potential additional plays on this turn. He finds 2 Let It Goes, though, so that could get rid of the Hades. He also finds Hiram, but I'm sure he wanted to find Ariel or Tamatoa on this turn to try and wrap things up. I'm not sure how many items he's got, but he's got quite a few.
Right, a whole ton of cards that will allow Jonathan to cycle through his deck, though, with the 2 Simbas as well as the 2 Azurite Seas. So I don't even think, with this not being your favorite draw in the world, you've still got so many options here.
Yep. Could sail twice. He's got plenty of things to ink, like you mentioned. He has a Hiram in hand if he wants to draw 2 more. Draw a bunch of cards this turn. But you don't want to use too much ink. You want to try and finish the game as quickly as possible. Again, he's got the Goat in his hand now. He's got the bounce available to him. So Jonathan, if he doesn't win this turn, he doesn't remove the Hades. That's game for Earlmeister. Down comes Simba. There's the Tamatoa.
He finds the Tamatoa.
How many items are on the board? I have no clue. We're going to sail?
Me neither. I'm looking at 1, 2, 3, at least what I believe to be 4, possibly more. And then when the Tamatoa comes down, Tamatoa is going to be able to reach back into that discard pile, find another item.
Yep.
To play down here. And it is looking grim, because if you let it go, I believe that Jonathan has enough to hard cast the Let It Go onto the Hades and then play down the Tamatoa.
And activate Dime.
Right, which will represent lethal on board. And it's looking like for Earlmeister, it might be a little too late here.
Yeah, that Tamatoa is exactly what Jonathan wanted to find here. And with at least 4 items on the board, he's going to be activating Dime for 5. They're just figuring out, making sure everyone knows how much available ink there is. Because Jonathan's got a bunch of options available to him to ink additional times every single turn. So, got to keep track of all of that and how many times you're still able to ink.
Yeah, throwing down that Simba, though, I'm pretty sure that there is 17 ink available right now to LamChopss. And with 17 ink, I mean, that's more than enough to cast the Tamatoa and the Let It Go. Jonathan getting his cards together, putting the equations, the math together in his mind.
Did he ink with the sail already? I don't think so.
Not to my knowledge.
So he could still ink with that.
Let's see what comes down.
Thinking through all of his options. Goes for the Hiram.
Interesting play.
Wants to see more cards. Adjusting his dice here so everyone knows how much ink is available. We're working with a lot of ink in a limited amount of space. Infinite cosmic ink. Itty bitty living space.
Ooh! Down comes the grab your swords. But,
he could let it go the Hades and grab your sword.
Right.
Here we see the let it go.
That might be what's happening here. Okay, let it go comes down. And now I wonder if it's the Tamatoa because he left 8 ink, or if it's the grab your swords to clear the board to guarantee it. Yep.
Grab your sword is what he opts to go with. Leaves him 3.
Casted.
He can get another Fishbone Quill. Wants to go with a Simba. He can still ink with Sail this turn, I think. Finds another Simba.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and I don't think that he played down that Sail. I believe that Sail was actually discarded through the Simba.
Oh, I see.
And same with this one, yeah.
Gotcha.
When he cycled through to find that Tamatoa. So
Gotcha.
I believe he is at the ink. This turn feels like it's lasted 12 minutes, which is never fun to be in the opposite part of the control deck here.
Yeah.
Knowing that your opponent has all this ink, all this lore, and all this, all these threats.
Looking to ink something else, going for another Fishbone. All right, so what Jonathan has done here is essentially put his opponent into checkmate for all intents and purposes. Because we know the dime is on board, we know the Tamatoa is in hand. However, there is a little bit of an issue, right? Nope, there's no issue because he can grab the Popsicle. He'll put the Popsicle on board. That's 4 items plus 1 lore for Tamatoa is 5. He's at 15. Tamatoa next game, or next turn, it's all over. So Earl doesn't know it yet, but...
even with all the... I applaud you for all the math, but on board, Jonathan has 6 lore represented.
Right. Why am I even talking about Tamatoa when he's got 3 Simbas and a Hiram?
You're going for the flex play. You're going for the gold. Let's do it in style with the Tamatoa coming down.
All right, so we're in double, triple checkmate because, all right, Earl, you have to clear my entire board. Even if you do that, I have game in my hand. You know, it just seems like there's nothing that Earl can do here, and maybe it was just a little bit too late with the Hades, with the Wendy's. Getting those characters onto the board and questing fast enough. Chose not to quest with the Mufasa, instead challenged and got a rabbit out of it. Maybe there were just a couple of opportunities for Earl to maybe be a little bit more aggressive, maybe quest a little bit faster and close the game out before we got to this inevitable 19 ink that we see Jonathan at.
Exactly. It's and again, you know, it's a lot easier when you can see the cards in the player's hands. I'm sure Earlmeister was thinking around all the different options that LamChopss would have available to him with the 4 different cards and what combinations and what kinds of removal. But I think it was a little bit of Earlmeister seeing the boogeyman here and being too afraid to quest out his characters at a time when he needed to go very, very aggro. And again, you can't fault anybody for that. It's just a part of the game. You know, sometimes you're at the top levels of play. You're making calls that look and seem ridiculous, but it only seems ridiculous when you don't realize that these players are thinking on such a high level. They're trying to dodge all of the different threats. We've seen it in so many of the games. I think about Kendall's No, I'm not. B prep wiping his own board, 7 for oneing himself. But still being able to win the game after, but playing around the super goofs in last week's match. Um, sometimes you're making the right play and doing the right odds and math in your head, and it just turns out to not be the actuality of what the opponent has. So I think that's where it caught Earlmeister today. What do you think? I mean, what do you think about this match?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. It's one of those situations where he's just worried about all the potential things that Jonathan could have, where maybe he got a little diverted off of his game plan. Now, that's not to take anything away from Earlmeister. He was put in this position playing against one of the top players in the world, that being Jonathan, who played very, very well. I think both players played really well, and Earl played exceptionally when you're talking about, all right, I have to play around these cards. And of course, we know that Jonathan didn't necessarily have those cards, but maybe it was just a little bit too slow. Maybe you want to go a little faster into your outs instead of hoping your opponent isn't able to like answer your Hades, for example.
Again and again, just on paper and watching how this game played out, very, very, very difficult matchup, I would say. I mean, we'll talk to Earlmeister a little bit after the stream if he's available, but as maybe the only pilot of this exact deck, I'd love to know his thoughts on the Sapphire Steel matchup, but from the beginning on paper, it looked like it was going to be a very, very hard game to win.
Yeah, Jonathan shows the Tamatoa, and that is going to do it. That is 2-0 for Jonathan Lamb, who takes it for his first win of the Lorcana Cross Continental Challenge and the third win for North America overall. So starting us off in round number 2, North America goes up 1-0 and closes the gap a little bit between these two continents full of amazing players. Just great gameplay from both players' sides, and one of the more interesting games to think about, especially with all this math, what's going on, who's got this, what's in their hand type plays, and both players just playing and thinking ahead as much as possible.
Two wacky decks that have got to be confusing for each other, clashing, and it feels like a fight between two drunken masters or something, where the play style is going to be inherently unorthodox. So you're interested to see how the fight goes. This one goes to LamChopss. Congratulations, well done. I mean, we got a whole lot of other important, fun matchups this week already kind of forming here as well. Are there any particular matchups that you're interested in going forward here?
Oh, for sure, every single one. I can't wait to see every single match. I love all of the great, interesting matchups that we get to see. This is just like a buffet for Lorcana fans, especially competitive Lorcana fans that love to see play at the highest level. So I'm super excited for all of them, but of course I want to see both my coaches go up against each other, that being Kendall Burdett, No I'm Not, and Artabax going head-to-head here in the next couple of days. But I'm going to see if both players are available for interviews here. Just give me 1 second, and we'll see if they're around. It looks like we do have them both. Jonathan, Earl, are you here?
We're here.
Okay, great game, great match to both of you. Loved seeing that. It was really, really interesting how the match was going. There were a lot of micro decisions, and we saw both of you thinking so far ahead throughout the entire match. And it looked like in that second game that Jonathan, you were in a really, really tough position. Those genies were on board. You didn't have a ton of clean answers to them. They were questing for so much. We saw you play that grab your sword and then use the whole new world to potentially find new answers and another grab your sword, maybe fire the cannons, but you found the double tink. Is that what you were looking for? Just to grab your sword and then find potentially additional answers to those genies so they didn't just run over you?
Yeah, so the genies are a lot of a problem in the new set for Blue Steel. Um, and especially since I know that I'm only running two Gravity Swords in this list. Since I drew one sadly right before I wanted to wheel, I had to just take the opportunity and use it right away because I don't know like when's the next opportunity that I'll be able to use a Gravity Swords. So I was hoping to either draw into Fire Cannons, um, or draw into another swords or some Tinkerbells, and thankfully I was able to get some Tinkerbells after the wheel.
Yeah, triple Tinkerbells after the wheel.
Yeah.
Brent, what questions do you have for Jonathan after that match?
Jonathan, I got one very specific question. Don't know if it's been asked already. Why no more Merlin's Cottage? I'm very curious. Your thoughts?
Um, Merlin's Cottage, I think Merlin's Cottage was specifically in there to deal with the red-blue matchup, and I think we have a lot of tools now that allow us to go 50-50 or even positive against red-blue. So I think that even though it did help in that matchup, there's other tools that are better into other matchups that are more flexible.
That totally makes sense. And my only other question is for you. How did you prepare for a matchup like this where both of you are playing decks that many people would maybe see as a bit unorthodox? Like, what was the testing like for you? What was the process? Seeing Earlmeister's deck with so many two ofs, one ofs, so a very wild card type of deck.
So I was I'm not sure how to approach the matchup, but I just yeah, I respected what the deck could do, and so I wanted to test a lot against it. So had, my girlfriend, she doesn't play much, but she helped me play a few games against it. And earlier today, I had a friend who was helping me test as well, and that was really helpful. Just understanding the power lines that the deck can do and how to play around them.
Jonathan, Garrick here. One final question from me. In that second game, we're going into turn 3. We draw the Fishbone Quill off the top. We have the option, Fishbone Quill or Pleakley. Was there any part of your head thinking, let me just put Pleakley down onto the board? I saw him ink a fox. It's Pleakley time. Or was it always
Yeah,
Fishbone?
I definitely thought that, and it was mostly just so that people stopped making fun of him.
I love him.
But
I love him.
if I realized like since Earl was starting to get ahead on board, I would need a lot more ink in order to deal with his board. So I went with the Fishbone Quilt instead. But I believe that Bleakley is a lot better on the play, where you can actually just control the board and out tempo your opponent. But on the draw, where you need to play catch up mechanics, the Fishbone Quilt is the right tool for that.
Yeah, gotcha. Makes total sense. All right, Jonathan, thank you so much for joining us. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we talk to Earl?
Just want to say thank you to Earl for the games. It was really fun, and it was a pleasure to play against him. He's a great opponent. And I guess it was lucky that you guys couldn't hear the audio, but we were both sick and we were both just coughing the whole match. So it's good that we were muted for that. But thank you for the games, Earl.
Oh no worries. It's a pleasure playing with you. I'm a big fan of the way you play in the DLC, the energy, the how fast you play, and you play with style, and sometimes the way you go super aggressive with the blue steel. It's a pleasure to watch. I'm a fan, so getting to play with you is an honor. Thank you, Jonathan.
Yeah, thank you. Good games.
Good games.
Jonathan, do you want to tell the people where they can find you before you log off?
Oh yeah, sure. I'm not too active anywhere on social media, but I do have a Twitter. That's LamChopss, LAMCHOP, two S's, TCG. That's my Twitter handle. If not there, then I do post some guide stuff on merlinscottage.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jonathan, and congratulations on your win, and we will see you in round 3.
Thank you.
A riveting match. Earlmeister, we got you here, so we definitely would love to get some questions in if you're down.
Yeah, of course.
I guess my big question is on the second game. There were a few different opportunities earlier on where you could have taken a more aggressive aggro line, and I was assuming that you were sort of playing around different threats. But I'd love to know your thought process on being a little less aggressive and taking your foot off of the gas a teensy bit during the mid game of the last match there.
The last match, if I'm being honest with you, I'm doing my best at the moment, but I need to jumpstart my brain for this matchup. It's like what Jonathan said. We were both sick, and I think the early game it's just Kaloon can be really annoying, and there were times there where I really wanted to go aggressive, but without the crab, it's kind of hard to go aggressive because if he does exert, I won't have many answers to what's going on. I will be thinning up my board, and this is a bad matchup for a mid-range player like me. In general, blue steel is literally what I hate to play against the most as a mid-range player. They just have so many answers to the board. Unlike blue red, they're a mid-range control deck, so their deck is better end game, and I need to put that aggression in the beginning, but they're also fast enough to keep up with my board, right? Like especially Jonathan's version running the Kaloons. The Kaloons is it's just super annoying. So I wasn't able to like push hard in the beginning. If I exert the Diablo too early, then it would just get taken out for free by the Simba. I was hoping I would get an Olaf instead. Then I probably would have played differently. But yeah, it was just an awkward spot in the beginning. I'm sure I misplayed a lot too in the beginning, but I tried to poke here and there. The game plan was basically rely on Genie there, and the last game it was a really good game, and I was hoping I would get one of those games that Kawa got, right, like with the multiple a whole new world in his hand. But he's got the triple Tinkerbell double grab, and he got to empty his hand and do a whole new world. Literally everything that he needed for that match he got. But I think I played all right going against him there. But yeah, if I'm being honest, I respect this 8v8, but it really just came in a really bad timing for me, because that 6 was coming out as a creator for 3 weeks. I haven't had a day off. Today was my only day off because it was my daughter's christening party yesterday. So I just got off a party, and I'm sick and tired. I haven't had any practice against any of the decks that I played against, which is people would get mad at me for this, but the thing is, like, I had to prioritize what I need to do first in life, you know? Right. But moving forward from here, for the third round and the fourth round, I definitely will do some testing. But yeah, I've been doing my best on these matches.
I'm gonna say this, Earl. No one's gonna get mad at you. You are a ball of charisma and entertainment on anything that you're in. So I would hope that people can understand that sometimes life gets in the way of the card game stuff. I thought it was a thrilling and fun match. Go ahead, Garrick. Sorry to cut you off there.
No, you're good. I was just going to say, like, throughout the match, we saw how you were playing around potential outs that Jonathan could have in his hand, and you were doing it very, very well, especially in the mid game when you were forced to challenge into his characters when ideally you would like to quest. You were playing around potentially singing, removing all those Tinkerbells in that one turn was really, really well played by you to get rid of all those singers and potential threats to continue questing, especially when, the lucky dime is in play. So we thought you played around all his potential outs very, very well. And don't be down on yourself, you know, when life when life comes first, you know, for sure.
Yeah, I really am not being down on myself. I'm enjoying this event. It's a pleasure to be here. I just wish that it came on a different timing for me, and I'm not using that as a reason because these guys are ultra megatonic players. Even if I get practice against these players, I don't think that the results would be different. But yeah, I'm happy to be here. I'm very grateful. But yeah, I just had some priorities that I need to handle. But yeah, moving forward from here, I'm definitely gonna do some testing because I don't want to go out as 0-4 with this as well. And also, a lot of people have been saying, why the heck did I bring this deck to an 8v8 with all these pro players? Even one of my friends confronted me for it. Like, I'm here. I'm an entertainer.
Right.
I went here as an entertainer. I'm an entertainer first before I am a competitive player. And I thought that this deck has legs on it, and at the same time I thought it would be entertaining to watch as well. And that was my goal, is to basically go in here and have fun, and yeah, that's what I've been trying to do.
Well, I gotta say, I had a lot of fun watching, and even just the pregame, looking through your deck, I was just watching and looking through going, man, what an interesting, odd deck. I think it does add a lot of fun when there's so much spice. So, Earlmeister, I mean, man, great chopping it up with you today. Great play, fun deck, and I love your point of view and perspective. It's highly contagious, and getting a chance to just chop it up with you right now is honestly just a blast.
Thank you. You guys as well. I'm a fan of you as well. The way you did the Be Prepared and DLC, like that's a type of stuff that I love watching. You know, at the end of the day, this is a game, and it's meant to be enjoyed. I played this game for 3-4 sets, playing one deck, Ruby Amethyst, and I just sat one day and I'm like, what the heck am I doing? I am not a pro player in terms of like trying to win like all these big events. Why am I trying so hard to like prove myself? And of course, I have respect for people who are trying to do that. I'm not trying to diss them, right? But I question myself. I'm like, what's my goal in the Lorcana community, in the Lorcana scene? And my goal is to entertain. And set 5, I changed my perspective in the game. I played over 20 decks in set 5, and I'm 10 times happier today with that goal.
Yeah, and I think that was the way to go. I mean, maybe you'll watch it in the VOD, but when I was doing the introduction, I called you the chameleon of Lorcana. You know, you can switch deck color combinations on a whim and crush it on Pixelborn Connect. You crushed me like 4 times when we've played on Pixelborn Connect with 4 different decks. So yeah, I love to see it. Your joy and love for the game is so contagious, and it was a great match, and I can't wait to see what you guys do in round 3. I'm so excited and so thankful for Pavel for putting all of this together and bringing us together. Like I said, the Lorcana community is just the best there is.
It is. Everyone is so nice. I've been going to a lot of events lately, and the support of the community has been amazing. And everyone is just so nice. 99.9%, I would say, of the community compared to the other communities that I've been in. It's just so different. Everyone is so kind and gentle, you know, except for Reddit, of course.
And even then, there's still some good people on Reddit.
Oh yeah. There's still some good people. Yeah.
Well, thank you to both of you. Earl, is there anything you want to add before we let you go? We know you're both sick, so we don't want to keep you too long.
And it's also midnight here right now.
Yes, true.
Go ahead,
No, I was
Brent.
just saying true. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I
Uh,
was just saying, woof. That's it's tough to be playing that late at night too. But please shout out everything you're doing right now, Earlmeister.
Yeah, so I just wanted to say if you guys want to check me out, I am pretty much everywhere. Earlmeister. You can Google Earlmeister or go to Twitch or YouTube Earlmeister, and you should be able to find me there. Also, probably not the best time to promote this as well. I'm on Medify .gg slash at Earlmeister. I do coaching, help out people make decks or make deck choices. I also have a couple courses there of how to get you started as a competitive player. And yeah, I know the green purple community feels like I've been letting them down because that's like one of my signature decks for set 5. I made the tool variant for it, and just a heads up to all my fans who love watching me green purple, I will be doing 1 or 2 weeks full just green purple starting tomorrow on stream. So if you guys want to catch that, feel free to do it. And then after that, we'll create maybe 20, 30 more decks for this set.
That's what we like to hear.
We love it. We love it. Congrats on your daughter's christening as well.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's been a joy being a dad. It's honestly the biggest blessing that ever happened to me. Because you probably know, as a creator, you spend 12 to 15 hours a day working, and when I get off work, I see that baby smile, and she gives me some love, and all the tiredness just goes away, which is a really nice feeling.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this interview, especially since you're sick and especially since it's so late at night. But yeah, good luck in your next round, and thank you so much for doing this. Brett, any final words for Earlmeister here?
Earlmeister, love watching your content, love watching you play. Great to meet you online, and keep grinding, dude. Looking forward to more matches. Looking forward to these last 2 rounds.
Thank you. Hopefully, I get at least one victory for Team EU. But thank you guys for casting this, and again, thank you for the community for the support. Not just for me, but supporting all these casters, all these players. Big shout out to Vivel, one of the most ultra megatonic human being you'll ever meet, and for what he's doing to this community. I really, really appreciate you, Pavel. So big shout out to you. And I hope everyone has a great weekend. Keep enjoying set 6. And don't forget to always have a smile in your face, win or lose. Remember that it's a game that you love. Keep enjoying it.
Well said. Well said. Thank you so much.
All right. Have a good one, guys.
Yeah, take it easy, Earl. Thank you.
See you around.
That was Jonathan Lamb and Earlmeister, 2 great guys, 2 pillars of the Lorcana community for sure, and a great match that we just witnessed. 2 people having a Jordan flu game, which we didn't know about, but they powered through, and it was excellent.
Thinking through these decisions at the highest levels of competition while sick, I can't even imagine. I have a hard time doing it when I'm fully functional. So to know that these 2 guys were playing that good while sick, absolutely more incredible with the context.
Yeah, for sure. So in closing, thank you to everybody who tuned in. We really appreciate it. Thank you for tuning into the stream, supporting the Lorcana community, just as Earl said. Shout out to Pavel for putting the Lorcana Cross Continental Challenge together. Shout out to all the players. Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, Earlmeister, for letting us witness your amazing matchups. And thank you to Brett for joining me here in the Lorcana layer for this epic round 2 match. We got it started off right, I hope. I hope everyone enjoyed, and I hope you all had a ton of fun. Brett, any closing words?
Thanks for the fun, everybody. I mirror everything that Garrick just said. You can follow me across all social medias at Brent Mukai. That's BrentMukai. And Brent's Quest on YouTube. And I want to thank you, Garrick. You put it together. I said earlier today, I feel like we're in science class and you're the one doing most of the work here. So thank you so much. If everybody enjoyed this stream, just know I was here being a talking head. Garrick was doing everything, troubleshooting and getting all the graphics and getting everything going. So thank you for what you're putting into not only the Lorcana community, but to this specific Lorcana Cross Continental matchup.
Yeah, man, it's been fun, and hopefully you and I will cast together a Disney Lorcana challenge properly one day. We'll meet up in person and be doing it together. So we're both aspiring to do that, and hopefully we'll be casting more together in the future. Thanks again, everybody, for joining and watching the stream, and we will see you later in the week. Brent has another game that he's doing. I have another game that I'm doing, and it should be a lot of fun. Stay tuned for the next 7 games of round 2, and we'll see you next time.